Did you ever wonder how people aged gracefully before hospitals and nursing homes existed? What happened when your back gave out, your eyes started to blur, or your memory began to fade in the 10th century? What if you had no family to care for you? Number 9. Infirmary care and dedicated healers. Medieval monasteries, particularly from the 10th century onwards, were not just places of prayer and scholarship. They were also functioning communities that took on the immense responsibility of caring for their members from cradle to grave, and this included a dedicated system for their elders. For monks and nuns reaching their twilight years, the monastic infirmary became a vital hub of care, far more advanced than many might imagine for the time. This was not simply a sick room. It was a specialized unit, often a separate building, or a distinct wing within the monastery, designed with the specific needs of the ill and the aging in mind. The infirmary at St. Gall, detailed in its famous 9th century plan, showed a clear layout with separate areas for different types of ailments, including private rooms for the seriously ill and a larger hall for others, along with an adjacent doctor's residence and herb garden. This foresight meant that when a monk or nun began to feel the persistent aches of rheumatism, the increasing chill of old bones, or the slow loss of vision, they were not left to struggle alone in their communal dormitory. The heart of the infirmary was the infirmarian, a monastic brother or sister who bore the responsibility for the health and well-being of the community. This was not a minor role. It required a deep understanding of herbal medicine, basic surgical techniques, and an empathetic approach to care. The infirmarian often had years of practical experience, learning from older infirmarians and through observation and trial. They were the monastery's resident physician, pharmacist, and care boar, all rolled into one. At large abbeys like Cluny, the infirmarian would have had assistants, often younger monks or novices, who would help with daily tasks, preparing poultices, fetching water, cleaning linens, and simply sitting with the ailing to offer comfort and companionship. Brother Benedict, the infirmarian at Glastonbury Abbey in the 12th century, according to the Glastonbury Register, was known for his vast knowledge of local plants and their medicinal properties. He would often prescribe a decoction of elderflower for fevers, or a compress of mallow leaves for swollen joints, remedies passed down through generations within the monastic healing tradition. The infirmary environment itself was designed to be as conducive to healing and comfort as possible. Unlike the often damp and cold stone of the main monastic buildings, the infirmary was frequently situated in a sunnier, more sheltered part of the complex. It typically had its own heating system, often a large fireplace or hypocaust system, to keep the space warm, particularly crucial for older bodies more susceptible to the cold. The beds were usually softer, perhaps stuffed with straw or even feathers, and individual rather than communal, offering a degree of privacy and comfort not found in the main dormitories. Windows were designed to let in light, and often overlooked the monastery's infirmary garden, a dedicated space where medicinal herbs were grown. Imagine the scent of rosemary, lavender, and mint wafting through the air, believed to have healing properties and to simply make the environment more pleasant. The infirmary also often had its own latrine facilities, ensuring greater ease of access for those with mobility issues, a small but significant detail that speaks volumes about the practical care provided beyond the physical space. The care provided was holistic. The infirmarian and their assistants also ensured personal hygiene, helping older monks and nuns with washing, dressing, and other personal needs as they became less able to manage these tasks independently. They would assist with eating, sometimes preparing special foods that were easier to digest or more nourishing for frail bodies. The infirmary kitchen, often separate from the main monastic kitchen, was dedicated to preparing these specialized diets. Brother Thomas, an infirmarian at Fountains Abbey in the 13th century, is cited in the Fountains Abbey cartulary as having advocated for a diet rich in fish broth and soft, stewed vegetables. For the older monks, believing it aided digestion and provided essential nutrients without taxing their systems. This attention to detail demonstrates a level of care that goes beyond simple treatment of illness. It aimed to maintain the overall well-being and dignity of the aging community members. Spiritual care was also interwoven with physical care in the infirmary. A small chapel or altar was usually present within the infirmary itself, allowing those too frail to attend the main church services to still participate in prayer and receive the sacraments. The infirmarian, being a monk or nun themselves, understood the spiritual needs of their charges and would offer words of comfort, lead prayers, and ensure regular visits from the chaplain. The knowledge that spiritual solace was always at hand brought immense peace to those facing the infirmities of age or the prospect of their final days. The emphasis was on a peaceful and supported passage through the final stages of life, ensuring that both body and soul were tended to with utmost devotion. The infirmary, therefore, served as a beacon of compassion, a place where aging monks and nuns found not only physical relief but also profound spiritual comfort within their monastic family. This comprehensive approach to care, spanning physical health, personal needs, dietary requirements, and spiritual well-being, made the monastic infirmary a truly remarkable institution for elder care. Number 8. Special diets and nutrition tailored for age. In the bustling, often austere world of a medieval monastery, the dietary needs of its aging members were not overlooked. While the typical monastic diet was largely vegetarian and often simple, emphasizing humility and self-discipline, a notable exception was made for those in the infirmary or those advanced in years. It was understood that older bodies required different nourishment, often needing softer, more easily digestible foods, and sometimes even more protein and caloric intake than their younger, more robust counterparts. This nuanced approach to diet was a practical application of the monastic vows of stability and community care, ensuring that even the most vulnerable members were adequately sustained. The rule of Saint Benedict, the foundational text for many monastic orders, made specific provisions for the sick, stating that they should be served very delicately. This instruction was interpreted by many abbeys to extend to the aging, recognizing that age itself brought its own form of infirmity. The infirmary kitchen, distinct from the main monastic kitchen, played a crucial role in this specialized dietary provision. While the main kitchen might be preparing a communal meal of boiled grains and vegetables, the infirmary kitchen would be a realm of more tailored culinary endeavors. Here, the infirmarian, or a designated kitchen assistant, would prepare meals specifically designed for ease of consumption and nutritional benefit. For an elderly monk whose teeth were failing, tough bread crusts or fibrous vegetables would be replaced with soft porridges, perhaps made from finely ground oats or barley, cooked with warming spices like cinnamon or ginger, which were also believed to aid digestion. Vegetables would be thoroughly boiled or stewed until tender, making them easier to chew and swallow. Imagine the gentle aroma of a simmering pot of vegetable broth, enriched with root vegetables like carrots and parsnips, offering a comforting warmth and essential nutrients to an aging nun at Shaftesbury Abbey in the 11th century. As recorded in their historical annals, meat, often restricted in the main monastic diet, was occasionally permitted for the sick and the aged, particularly in the form of restorative broths or soft, easily digestible cuts. While beef or pork might be rare, chicken or fish broth, rich in gelatin and easily absorbed proteins, was often considered a vital fortifier. These broths were seen not just as food, but as medicine, believed to restore strength and aid recovery. A common preparation for a frail elder might involve a clear broth made from chicken or small game birds, sometimes thickened with a small amount of barley or breadcrumbs, offering easily assimilated calories and hydration. The consuetudines of Cluny, a detailed set of monastic customs from the 10th century, even specified that certain types of meat could be provided to those in the infirmary, a clear departure from the general monastic abstinence from flesh. This shows a pragmatic understanding of the nutritional needs of vulnerable individuals, prioritizing health over strict dietary adherence. Sweeteners like honey were also often included in the special diets, not just for taste. Honey was valued for its perceived medicinal properties and its ability to provide quick energy. It might be stirred into gruel, added to herbal teas, or spread on soft bread. Eggs, a valuable source of protein, might also be incorporated, prepared in easily digestible ways such as soft-boiled or poached. Milk from cows or goats could also be provided, offering calcium and fat for those needing to gain strength. These were considered comfort foods of the time, gentle on the stomach and restorative for the body. The monastic garden also played a significant role in providing fresh, easily accessible ingredients. Beyond medicinal herbs, it would supply fresh greens, onions, garlic, and root vegetables, which were incorporated into the infirmary diet. These were often prepared simply, simmered with herbs to create nourishing stews or pottages. The provision of wine or ale, often in moderation, was another aspect of this specialized diet. While excessive drinking was forbidden, a small amount of wine or ale was believed to be restorative and aid digestion, particularly for the elderly. It also provided a source of calories and hydration. In the infirmary, it might be warmed and spiced, turning it into a comforting, restorative drink. The customaries of various monasteries, such as those from Canterbury Cathedral Priory, often specified allowances for wine for the sick, acknowledging its perceived therapeutic benefits. This wasn't indulgence, but a calculated part of their care regimen, recognizing that small comforts and gentle sustenance could make a significant difference to an aging person's well-being. The thoughtfulness extended to the preparation and serving of these meals was also key. Food for the elderly was often served warm, brought directly to their bedsides, and sometimes even spoon-fed if needed. This level of personalized care, stemming from the monastic commitment to charity and compassion, ensured that even the most fragile members of the community were nourished, not just physically but with dignity and respect. Number 7. Blighted duties and continued purpose. Aging within a medieval monastery did not mean a life of idleness or being cast aside. Quite the opposite. The monastic system was structured to adapt to the changing capacities of its elder members, providing them with lighter duties that still allowed them to contribute to the community and maintain a sense of purpose. This was a crucial aspect of their well-being, recognizing that an active mind and a feeling of usefulness were just as important as physical care. The monastic rule of Saint Benedict, followed by many orders, emphasized finding a balance between work, prayer, and study, and this balance shifted as a monk or nun aged, but it never ceased entirely. It was a gradual transition, not an abrupt retirement, allowing individuals to gracefully step back from more demanding tasks while embracing new, less strenuous roles. For a monk who had spent decades toiling in the monastery's fields, copying manuscripts in the scriptorium, or managing the monastery's finances, as a cellarer, the physical and mental demands of these roles would eventually become too much. Instead of being completely relieved of duty, they might be assigned lighter tasks within the scriptorium, perhaps preparing parchment or grinding pigments rather than the intricate work of illumination or extensive copying. A former cellarer, with their deep understanding of the monastery's resources and connections, might become an advisor to the younger cellarer, sharing wisdom and offering guidance from a position of less direct responsibility. The Customs of Abingdon Abbey, a medieval manuscript, describes how older monks might be entrusted with the care of the monastery's relics or the upkeep of the library, roles that required diligence and reverence, but less physical exertion. This transition allowed their vast experience and knowledge to continue benefiting the community. Nuns, too, experienced similar shifts in their responsibilities. A nun who had been involved in managing the monastic treasury or supervising the laundry might move to quieter, more meditative tasks. They might take on roles within the infirmary as helpers, comforting the sick or assisting the infirmarian with simple preparations. A nun skilled in needlework might continue to mend habits or create altar cloths, but at a more leisurely pace, enjoying the quiet contemplation that such work allowed. For those who had been teachers in the monastic school, they might continue to share their knowledge through storytelling or by tutoring a few younger novices, imparting wisdom and spiritual guidance in a less formal setting. This ensured that their intellectual and spiritual contributions were not lost, but rather transformed into new forms of mentorship. The most common light duties for both aging monks and nuns often revolved around prayer and intercession. As their physical strength waned, their spiritual focus intensified. They were encouraged to dedicate more of their time to prayer, often in the main church or the infirmary chapel, praying for the community, for benefactors, and for the souls of the departed. This was considered one of the most vital contributions an elder could make, their spiritual efforts seen as immensely valuable to the entire monastic body and beyond. Their years of spiritual practice made them seasoned intercessors, and their prayers were believed to carry great weight. This role provided profound spiritual meaning and a constant connection to the core purpose of monastic life, ensuring that even as their bodies aged, their spiritual journey deepened. Moreover, simply by their presence, the elder monks and nuns provided an invaluable resource to the younger members of the community. They were living repositories of the monastery's history, traditions, and spiritual wisdom. Novices and younger monks and nuns would often seek their counsel, listening to stories of past abbots and abbesses, learning about the struggles and triumphs of their predecessors, and gaining insight into the monastic way of life. The very act of living a long, disciplined life within the monastery was a testament to faith and perseverance, serving as an example for all. Brother Gregory, an elderly monk at Vaux Abbey in the 12th century, was renowned for his vast knowledge of monastic history and the lives of the saints, and younger monks would often gather around him in the cloister, listening to his quiet teachings. This continued role as a guide, mentor, and spiritual exemplar ensured that the aging members remained deeply integrated and valued within the monastic family, their purpose evolving rather than ending. Number 6. Community and social support systems. Beyond the structured provisions of infirmaries and special diets, one of the most profound benefits for aging monks and nuns in medieval monasteries was the inherent strength of the monastic community itself. Unlike lay society, where an elderly person might face isolation, poverty, or neglect if their family was unable or unwilling to care for them, within the monastery, every member was part of a tightly knit spiritual family. This meant a constant, unwavering network of social and emotional support, woven into the very fabric of daily monastic life. The vows of stability in community life created an environment where no one was truly alone, and the well-being of each member was the shared responsibility of all. This communal bond provided a psychological comfort that is difficult to overstate, particularly in an era where societal safety nets were virtually non-existent. Daily life in a monastery, with its regular schedule of prayer, communal meals, and shared work, naturally fostered strong bonds. Monks and nuns lived, ate, and prayed together for decades, forming deep relationships that transcended mere acquaintance. As individuals aged, these long-standing friendships and fraternal or sororal ties became an invaluable source of support. A younger monk might quietly assist an older brother struggling to carry a heavy book, or a younger nun might help an elder sister with their habit during daily chores. These acts of kindness were not seen as burdens, but as expressions of Christian charity and devotion, an embodiment of the monastic ideal of mutual service. The rule of Saint Benedict consistently emphasizes the importance of looking after one another, especially the weak and the sick, extending this care to the aged, who often fell into this category. Meal times, though often silent and contemplative in the refectory, still offered a sense of shared presence and belonging. For those who were too frail to join the main communal meals, food would be brought to them in the infirmary, often by a younger monk or nun. This direct interaction, even if brief, served as a personal check in a moment to exchange a few quiet words, or simply to offer a reassuring presence. It prevented the isolation that can so easily accompany old age. The daily cycle of prayer also reinforced communal bonds. While an aging monk might spend more time in the infirmary chapel, they were still connected to the rhythm of the main church services, knowing that their brothers or sisters were praying alongside them, if not physically, then spiritually. This shared devotion created a sense of unity that transcended physical location. The role of the abbot or abbess was also crucial in fostering this supportive environment. As the spiritual head of the community, they were ultimately responsible for the welfare of all members. A good abbot or abbess would ensure that the needs of the aging were met, not just physically but emotionally. They would regularly visit the infirmary, offering words of encouragement, listening to concerns, and ensuring that adequate resources were being allocated. The customs of Farfa Abbey, a 10th century monastic rule, outlines the abbot's duty to show particular solicitude for the aged, ensuring they lacked nothing. This direct involvement from leadership reinforced the community's commitment to its elders and set an example for younger members to follow. Furthermore, the monastery often had a dedicated guest master or hospitaller, whose role was to look after visitors and those in need. While primarily for outsiders, this spirit of hospitality and care extended inwards to the community's own members. The very ethos of monasticism was rooted in charity and compassion, viewing each member as a beloved part of Christ's body. This philosophy naturally led to a culture where caring for the elderly was not an obligation but a sacred duty and a privilege. The presence of younger generations also provided a lively, dynamic novices and younger monks and nuns, full of energy and enthusiasm, would often be tasked with assisting the elders, fetching water, carrying messages, or simply engaging them in conversation. This intergenerational interaction prevented stagnation and loneliness, ensuring that the wisdom of the elders was passed down and that the younger members learned valuable lessons in humility and service. The communal structure of the monastery, therefore, provided a constant, unwavering source of social connection and profound human warmth for its aging members. A true safety net in a challenging world. Number 5. Spiritual comfort and sustained purpose. For medieval monks and nuns, aging was not merely a physical process, it was a profound spiritual journey, and the monastery provided an unparalleled framework for this evolution. Unlike the lay world, where old age could bring existential fears or a sense of obsolescence, within the monastic walls, the later years were often seen as a period of heightened spiritual intensity and deep communion with God. The constant rhythm of prayer, contemplation, and access to sacraments offered immense comfort and sustained purpose, ensuring that aging was not an end, but a deeper immersion into their chosen spiritual path. The spiritual comfort provided was not a mere add-on. It was the very essence of monastic elder care. The core of monastic life was the divine office, a series of daily prayers recited at specific hours throughout the day and night. While physically taxing for younger monks and nuns, the structure of these prayers offered profound solace to the aging. Even if an elderly monk or nun could no longer stand for extended periods or sing with a strong voice, they could participate in prayer from the infirmary chapel or their individual cells. The familiar chants, the sacred texts, and the shared act of worship provided a sense of continuity and belonging. Knowing that the entire community was engaged in the same timeless prayers, even if physically separated, fostered a powerful sense of unity and spiritual connection. for Brother Anselm at Lindisfarne in the 10th century, whose eyesight began to fail, the sounds of the morning lauds provided a profound sense of peace and connection, allowing him to participate, even if he could no longer read the Psalms as recorded in monastic histories. Access to the sacraments was also paramount. Confession. The Eucharist and anointing of the sick were readily available, providing spiritual cleansing, nourishment, and preparation for death. For many, these sacraments were the bedrock of their faith, and their frequent reception offered a profound sense of peace and reassurance. The infirmarian or visiting priest would ensure that those too frail to go to the main church could receive communion in their own quarters. This constant spiritual nourishment helped alleviate fears about the afterlife, and provided a framework for contemplating one's own mortality with serenity. The sense of being spiritually prepared and supported was a fundamental aspect of their elder care. Beyond formal prayers, the monastery fostered a culture of contemplation and meditation. For aging monks and nuns who had dedicated their lives to seeking God, their later years could be a time of even deeper spiritual insight. Freed from some of the more rigorous physical duties, they could devote more time to Lectio Divina, the meditative reading of Scripture, or to quiet contemplation in the cloister or garden. These quiet moments of spiritual reflection were considered extremely valuable, allowing them to deepen their understanding of divine mysteries and to prepare their souls for their ultimate journey. Many elder monks and nuns became spiritual advisors to younger members, sharing their insights gained over decades of prayer and study. This role as a spiritual mentor provided a continuing purpose, one that leveraged their accumulated wisdom and piety. The very concept of a good death was deeply embedded in monastic culture. Aging monks and nuns were not afraid to discuss death. Rather, they prepared for it with a sense of purpose and faith. The community rallied around those nearing their end, offering continuous prayers, comfort, and vigil. The presence of their monastic family during their final moments provided immense spiritual peace, ensuring that they did not die alone. The Consuetudines of Farfa Abbey detail the process of accompanying a dying monk, including the recitation of psalms and blessings. This shared passage, surrounded by their spiritual family, was a testament to the monastery's commitment to its members, even in their final breath. The belief that their prayers would continue after death and that their souls would be remembered by the community offered unparalleled comfort. In essence, the monastery provided a complete spiritual ecosystem that nurtured its aging members, offering them not just comfort, but also a profound and sustained spiritual purpose. Till their very last moment. Number 4. Warmth, shelter, and comfort in living quarters. In an age when most homes relied on simple hearths and drafty windows, medieval monasteries offered a remarkable degree of warmth, shelter, and physical comfort to their aging residents. This was not just about basic survival. It was a deliberate provision designed to alleviate the physical discomforts that naturally accompanied old age. Monastic buildings, particularly the infirmary and often dedicated elder quarters, were constructed and maintained with an understanding that older bodies were more susceptible to cold, damp, and the general rigors of the climate. This attention to environmental comfort was a significant aspect of their compassionate elder care, setting them apart from the often harsh conditions outside their walls. The infirmary, as mentioned earlier, was specifically designed to be warm and comfortable. It often boasted its own dedicated heating systems, which were a luxury for the time. Large fireplaces were common, offering radiant heat, and some larger or wealthier monasteries even utilized sophisticated hypocaust systems, similar to Roman underfloor heating. These systems would circulate warm air beneath the floors, providing an even and pervasive warmth that was especially beneficial for arthritic joints and aching bones. Imagine the relief for an elderly nun suffering from chills at Barking Abbey in the 11th century as she felt the gentle warmth rising from the stone floor beneath her. a stark contrast to the biting cold outside the monastery walls. The customs of Winchester detail the provisions for firewood for the infirmary, indicating a consistent supply of fuel to maintain warmth. Beyond just heating, the location and construction of the infirmary and other elder-specific quarters were carefully considered. They were often placed in sunnier, more sheltered parts of the monastic complex, away from prevailing winds and damp areas. Walls were thick, offering insulation, and windows, though small by modern standards, were designed to let in light and offer views of tranquil gardens. Or the cloister, providing a sense of openness without sacrificing warmth. Glazed windows, while not universal, were certainly present in wealthier monasteries, further keeping out drafts. The roofing was meticulously maintained to prevent leaks and damp, ensuring a dry and healthy environment. Inside the infirmary, the living arrangements were also tailored for comfort. While younger monks and nuns often slept in large communal dormitories, the elderly, especially those needing medical attention, would have individual cells or private rooms. These rooms offered privacy and a quieter environment conducive to rest and recovery. The beds themselves were usually more comfortable than those in the main dormitory. Instead of simple straw mattresses, they might have been stuffed with softer materials, like wool, feathers, or even finely cut rushes, creating a more yielding surface for aging bodies. Linen sheets and wool blankets would be provided in ample supply, ensuring warmth during the cold medieval nights. The monastic laundress would ensure a steady supply of clean bedding, contributing to overall hygiene and comfort. Clothing was also adapted for the aging. While the basic monastic habit remained, older monks and nuns might be given extra layers of wool or linen for warmth. Their habits might be made from softer, less coarse fabrics, or tailored more loosely to accommodate physical changes or discomfort. Footwear would be chosen for comfort and warmth rather than just durability. For a monk suffering from swollen feet, softer leather shoes or even woolen slippers might be provided. This thoughtful adaptation of everyday necessities showed a genuine concern for the physical comfort of the elders. Furthermore, the general atmosphere of the infirmary was one of quietude and calm. Noise was kept to a minimum, ensuring that the elderly could rest undisturbed. The infirmarian and assistants moved quietly, speaking in low tones. For those who enjoyed reading, books would be made available, often brought to their bedside. This combination of structural provisions, heating, secure buildings, individual rooms, comfortable bedding, and the attentive service provided by the infirmarian and staff created a truly comforting and supportive living environment for aging monks and nuns, a sanctuary from the often harsh realities of the medieval world, allowing them to age with dignity and ease. Number 3. Personal care and hygiene assistance. In a time before modern plumbing and readily available personal care products, medieval monasteries nonetheless placed a significant care of their aging monks and nuns. Particularly for those who became frail or infirm, this was not merely about cleanliness. It was an act of profound respect, compassion, and a recognition of the inherent dignity of each individual. The monastic commitment to charity extended to ensuring that even the most basic and intimate needs of their elders were met with care and discretion, preventing neglect and maintaining their well-being. This attention to personal care was a hallmark of their advanced approach to elder support. For elderly monks and nuns experiencing decreased mobility, weakened grip, or cognitive decline, daily tasks like bathing, dressing, and using latrines could become challenging or impossible. The infirmarian and their dedicated assistants would step in to provide discreet and compassionate assistance. While full body bathing was less frequent than in modern times, partial washes were common, often performed with warm water and herbal soaps to keep the skin clean and prevent sores. Imagine an infirmarian gently washing the hands and face of an elderly nun at Whitby Abbey, ensuring she felt clean and refreshed, as monastic chronicles suggest. This hands-on care was a demonstration of selflessness and humility, embodying the monastic ideal of serving others. Dressing and undressing were also tasks where assistance might be provided. Monastic habits, with their layers and specific fastenings, could be cumbersome for arthritic hands. Assistants would help aging monks and nuns put on and take off their clothing, ensuring they were appropriately dressed for warmth and modesty. They would also ensure that clothing was clean and mended, preventing discomfort from worn or soiled garments. The constant availability of clean linens, supplied by the monastic laundry, meant that elderly individuals could always have fresh habits, and bedding contributing significantly to their comfort and sense of well-being. This might involve changing soiled garments promptly and ensuring a supply of fresh underclothes, a detail that speaks to a high standard of practical care. Managing bodily functions was another critical area of assistance. For those with incontinence or mobility issues, the infirmary would have specific provisions. Chamber pots would be readily available and discreetly emptied. For those who could still move, the infirmary often had its own latrine facilities that were more easily accessible than the main monastic ones, sometimes with supports or handles for stability. Assistants would help individuals reach these facilities or help them use the chamber pots, always with respect for their privacy and dignity. Preventing pressure sores. A common issue for bedridden individuals was also a concern. Infirmarians would frequently turn bedridden patients, ensure proper bedding, and apply soothing salves or herbal preparations to vulnerable skin, demonstrating a proactive approach to preventative care. Hair care and nail care, while seemingly minor, were also attended to. Hair would be washed and combed, preventing matting and promoting comfort. Nails would be trimmed to prevent scratches or infections, especially for those who could no longer manage their own grooming. These small but consistent acts of care contributed greatly to the overall comfort and dignity of the aging residents. The infirmarian cell often contained a variety of tools for such purposes, reflecting a comprehensive approach to personal care. The overall ethos of the monastery dictated that no one, especially the vulnerable, should suffer neglect or indignity. The provision of personal care was seen as a direct act of Christian charity, a way of serving Christ through serving their brethren or sisters. This ensured that aging monks and nuns, even in their most vulnerable states, were treated with profound respect. Their personal needs met with gentleness and unwavering attention, allowing them to maintain their dignity and comfort throughout their later years. The willingness of monastic caregivers to perform these intimate tasks pursues the deep commitment to holistic well-being within these medieval communities. Number 2. Financial security and lifelong provision. Perhaps one of the most compelling advantages of aging within a medieval monastery was the absolute financial security it offered. In a society where economic stability was precarious and poverty was a constant threat, entering a monastery meant freedom from the worries of sustenance, shelter, and medical care for life. For aging monks and nuns, this meant never having to fear destitution, dependence on reluctant family members, or the inability to afford necessities as their working capacity diminished. The monastery, as an established institution, was a self-sustaining entity, and its wealth, whether modest or vast, was pooled to provide for all its members, from the youngest novice to the most venerable elder. This collective security was a revolutionary concept for the time, offering an unparalleled level of provision for the elderly. Upon entering a monastery, an individual typically made a vow of poverty, meaning they renounced personal possessions and income. In return, the monastery took on the lifelong responsibility for their material needs. This meant that as a monk or nun, aged, they continued to receive food, clothing, shelter, and medical care, regardless of their ability to contribute labor or generate income. There was no concept of retirement savings or pensions in the modern sense. The monastery itself was the pension fund. Their daily needs were met from the monastery's accumulated resources, which came from land endowments, agricultural output, rents, tithes, charitable donations, and sometimes from the production of goods, like wine or wool. The Cartularii of St. Albans Abbey details the extensive land holdings that supported its large community, ensuring resources for all its members. Clothing was provided and replaced as needed. Habits were made from durable wool or linen, and a monk or nun would receive new garments as their old ones wore out. This meant they always had appropriate and clean attire, a small but significant comfort. For the elderly, as previously mentioned, habits might even be made from softer materials or be more generously cut for comfort, all at the monastery's expense. Heating and lighting, though basic by modern standards, were also provided centrally. Firewood or other fuels would be procured by the cellarer for the monastery's hearths and braziers, especially for the infirmary and other communal warming rooms. Candles or oil lamps were supplied for evening prayers and reading, ensuring light, even as eyesight dimmed. Food was another guaranteed provision. As discussed, not only was a regular supply of food ensured, but special diets were also tailored for the elderly, all covered by the monastic economy. There was no need to worry about purchasing food or having enough to eat. The monastic kitchen, provisioned from the monastery's own farms, gardens, and external suppliers, ensured a consistent and adequate diet for everyone, including those with specific needs. This removed a major source of anxiety for individuals in their later years. The monastic breweries and bakeries also ensured a steady supply of ale and bread, staples of the medieval diet, freely available to all members. Healthcare, as detailed in the infirmary section, was also entirely covered. There were no medical bills to pay, no need to worry about affording a physician or remedies. The infirmarian, with their knowledge and resources, provided all necessary care from herbal medicines to basic surgical interventions. This comprehensive medical support, freely given, was a huge advantage for aging individuals who might otherwise face debilitating illness. The costs of maintaining the infirmary, stocking it with herbs and supplies, and supporting the infirmarian were all absorbed by the monastic budget. The lifelong provision of these essentials was a profound commitment. It allowed aging monks and nuns to focus entirely on their spiritual lives and their remaining contributions to the community without the crushing burden of material worries. It fostered a deep sense of security and belonging, knowing that their community would care for them completely until their very last breath. This comprehensive financial safety net, provided by the collective wealth and charitable ethos of the monastery, truly set it apart as an exceptional institution for elder care in the medieval world. Number 1. Peaceful end of life, care, and dignified burial. The ultimate provision for aging monks and nuns in medieval monasteries was the assurance of a peaceful and supported end of life experience, followed by a dignified burial within the sacred grounds of the monastery itself. This was the final, most profound act of care, offering comfort not just in the final moments, but also ensuring eternal rest within the community that had nurtured them throughout their lives. The monastic approach to death was not one of fear or avoidance, but of a prepared spiritual transition, surrounded by their monastic family. This commitment to a good death was a culmination of all the care provided throughout their later years. When a monk or nun approached their final days, the care intensified. They would be moved to a private room in the infirmary, or a special cell ensuring quiet and privacy. The infirmarian and their assistants would be constantly present, offering continuous comfort and practical care. This included keeping them clean, ensuring they were warm, and providing sips of water or broth to ease their passing. The emphasis was on alleviating suffering and ensuring spiritual peace. This hands-on care, often extending to holding their hand or whispering prayers, provided immense human warmth during a vulnerable time. The rule of Saint Benedict explicitly states that the sick should be served with all zeal and attention, and this applied even more intensely to the dying. Spiritual preparation was central to this final phase. A priest would regularly visit to administer the last rites: confession, anointing of the sick, and Holy Communion. These sacraments were believed to cleanse the soul, strengthen the spirit, and prepare the individual for their journey into the afterlife. The community would engage in continuous prayer for the dying individual, often reciting psalms and special litanies around their bedside. This unwavering prayer vigil was a profound act of communal support, ensuring that the dying monk or nun felt surrounded by faith and love. Imagine the quiet, soothing sound of monastic chants filling the room. As Brother Alaric, a Benedictine monk at Durham Cathedral Priory in the 14th century, took his last breaths, surrounded by his brothers, their prayers guiding him onward. The presence of the monastic family at the moment of death was considered vital. No monk or nun would die alone. Their brothers or sisters would be present, offering comfort and witness to their passing. This collective vigil provided immense peace to the dying individual. Knowing they were held in love and prayer after death, the body would be prepared with reverence. It would be washed, dressed in the monastic habit, and laid out in the infirmary, or a dedicated chapter house, for the community to pay their respects. This period allowed for quiet contemplation and final farewells, a communal grieving process that honored the life of the departed. The burial itself was a dignified and solemn ceremony. The monk or nun would be carried in procession from the monastery church to the monastic cemetery, often located within the cloister or an adjacent garden. The entire community would participate, chanting psalms and prayers. The burial in consecrated ground within the monastery walls symbolized their lifelong commitment and their eternal belonging to the monastic family. There was no need for family to arrange or pay for burial. It was an inherent right of every monastic. Their grave would be marked, usually, simply perhaps, with a plain stone or wooden cross ensuring their memory was preserved. The location of the cemetery within the monastery grounds meant that the living members would pass by the graves of their predecessors daily, a constant reminder of the brevity of life and the continuity of the spiritual community. Even after burial, the care continued. The names of the deceased were often entered into the monastery's necrology, or Book of the Dead, and they would be remembered in daily prayers and memorial services. Anniversary masses would be held, ensuring that the deceased remained a cherished part of the community's spiritual life. This enduring remembrance offered profound comfort to the living, reinforcing the belief in eternal life and the unbroken chain of the monastic family. This complete cycle of care, from initial infirmity to a peaceful death and perpetual remembrance, ensured that aging monks and nuns received the highest level of care. A JV Tambasi Vruva